Everyone, welcome to a young reader-centered, a fantasy-centered edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Delighted on this episode to be joined by author Lauren Magaziner. Lauren, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. I'm going to pause right there. Did I get your name correct? I meant to ask that before I. Cool,
You
cool.
did,
All right.
yeah.
Now, you are the author of The Incorruptibles, which I understand to be a series aimed at the younger reader or all ages audience, meaning older readers could enjoy it too. And I am wondering, by means of an origins question, what has led you to authoring and to the written word?
Well, I grew up on stories. So from the time that I was really young, like before I can even remember, my parents would always read to me before bedtime and sometimes fight over who got to read with me versus my brother because he was younger. So I always got the more complex stories. So they really wanted to read with me, which was very fun. And yeah, I just, every night, that was our tradition. We just read together. And so I just loved stories as a reader. And then at some point, I thought I could maybe write. And then I tried writing my first book when I was 13, and it did not go very well. But I love the process of writing that I just wanted to keep trying. So I kept trying over and over again until it started to go a little better.
Yeah, it seems that you have some fantasy inspirations I'm seeing. Is that Mythics back there as
Yeah,
well?
that's my other series. It's called The Mythics. That one's for
Nice.
a little bit younger readers, more like 6 to 10 years old, versus The
Mhm.
Incorruptible, which is more like 10 to 14.
What are the challenges, the possibilities, the blessings, whatever kind of noun that you want to put on it, the goods even for writing for young readers and that particular audience?
Yeah, I feel like young readers have such a good imagination. Like they could just dream up anything, and they have a really good sense of humor. So when I go to school visits, one thing that I do is I always ask kids if they think that adults are boring and stuffy, and like every hand goes up. It's really cute. But I really do believe that kids have just an incredible sense of humor. And I love putting myself in the shoes of being that age, like the age of upper elementary through middle school, even like young high school, because it's such an important time. There's so many changes that happen, and it's like you are trying to figure out who you are first and foremost, and then you're trying to figure out what is your place in the world. And those are two really important questions that books for this age group get to explore. It's just such a specific thing that, adult books don't really get. By the time you get to adult books, you know who you are. Maybe you're still trying to find your place in the world, but you have a greater sense over who you are. And I just love exploring this. As for challenges, though, it's really hard because this age group, it's like you really need to provide them with hope. I think more hope than you get in older books. You can put them in impossible situations and overwhelming odds, as I do in The Incorruptibles, but I can't just like leave them there in the dark. They need a flashlight and they need a way out. They need to be able to see the goodness of the world and the light in it. So, finding that balance of having high stakes and action packed and even a character death I have in The Incorruptibles, like having that, but also balancing like the warmth and the love and inclusivity. Um, it's a tightrope I have to walk, but it's challenging but enjoyable.
Yeah. Anything that you'd like to say for readers who are uninitiated, who don't know as much about the book as it is right now?
Yeah, so the Incorruptibles, in the story, anybody can become a sorcerer, but the only people who do so are power hungry because magic has become a tool for oppression. So basically,
Mhm.
sorcerers use their magic and their mighty powers to lord over anybody who doesn't have magic, all the regular humans. So in the story, it takes place in like a near future version of the United States. So like 100 years ago, there were all of these sorcerers. They figured out how to become sorcerers, and they basically took over every town and every city. And the stronger the sorcerer, the bigger the town they took over, and the bigger the city until, it just gets bigger and bigger. And then the most powerful sorcerers are this tiny, tiny, small group called the Radiants, and they kind of rule over all the other sorcerers. But basically, if you're not a sorcerer, you're just at the bottom of the last rung on the ladder. Um, so it's basically about this character named Fiora Barrowling. She hates sorcerers because sorcerers killed her parents, and she lives with her uncle. He's a tailor, and she works as his apprentice. And
Mhm.
she actually ends up having an encounter with two of the worst sorcerers that exist. And for her protection, she's whisked away to a place called Ink Academy, which is the Incorruptibles are a group of regular, non magical sorcerer fighters. They fight sorcerers with technology. So basically, they take her to Ink Academy to train her to be a sorcerer fighter. And so that's what she has to do, fight them with just tech.
Nice, nice. Brains and technology versus the supernatural, the
Yeah, a
otherworldly.
lot of magic versus tech vibes. It's very
Yeah,
fun. Really action packed, a lot of battles.
yeah. Anything that you'd like to say about what draws you to fantasy, what it allows you to do in telling stories, and we'll tag mythology in there as well if you want. It's sort of a wonderful traditional sense of fantasy.
Yeah, I think sometimes people think that I dive into fantasy for escapism, but even though fantasy is a fun escape, that's not really why I do it. I actually think almost the opposite. Like, fantasy allows me to use metaphor or to write with metaphor more. So I can say truths about our world so much easier sometimes through the scope of fantasy than I could if I was just to do a realistic fiction book. So I really love that fantasy allows me that more like allegorical sense of like, oh, you know, is she talking about this? And it allows me to explore a bit more. I also love it because it puts kids in the driver's seat because there's
Yeah.
no other place where you would like hand a kid a lightning blaster and be like, here, kid, have a lightning blaster. This is your problem now. Go fight sorcerers. Like in
Right.
our world, we would just never like put the kid in the center of the conflict. But in fantasy, there's ways that you can actually get kids to consider these big questions about, in the Incorruptibles specifically, like power and how does power function, and does it seem like people with so much power punch down? And so these are, big questions that the kids get to explore, and good versus evil, and the nuances and the messiness that comes with fighting for good. So all of that just gets to belong to the kids.
Nice, nice. You anticipated a question that I was going to tuck in there about what you hope readers are still thinking about and exploring, so that taps really well into some big questions, which I agree. Fantasy, science fiction, mythology, those are great places to ask those sort of questions and process them.
Oh yeah, totally. And then, to think about things like teamwork and grit and determination. I mean, all of those come through in fantasy and mythology and science fiction as well.
Yeah. Yeah. If I am a listener and I want to find out more, including you mentioned author visits, things of that nature, any place that you would direct me to go?
I would direct you to my website. It's laurenmagaziner.com. It has a tab specifically about school visits and about events. You can find more about the Incorruptibles and all my other books on there. I also have a monthly newsletter. So you can sign up for my newsletter. It's laurenmagaziner.substack.com. And that has all of my news as I have it, and also like musings about writing and publishing and all that. Those are probably the best places. Oh, also social media. I have Instagram and Facebook and Blue Sky and Threads.
Nice, nice. So many options out there for social media.
You can
Absolutely.
find me.
Yeah. Well, I imagine that the Incorruptibles is a series. Is that the case? Is that the plan, the hope, the
Yes,
direction?
yes, that's the plan. So right now I'm working on the second book. I just got notes back from my editor. She said, "You gobsmacked me a million times." So that was
Nice.
really great feedback to receive. And especially since she had known where it was going, like she had received a synopsis and she was still surprised by some of the twists it took. I think book two really turns things on its head in a way that you might not expect. Both book one and book two are very expansive, detailed world building type of stories and really fun. I think that both of them are great. And I have ideas about where I would like to take this if I have the opportunity to do more.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Well, many, many thanks, Lauren. Always glad to talk with you.